about the road shows that they used to do. I think they started in the late '50s and then like committed to them really big time in the '60s. Is I mean, I didn't really live through this experience. It's just I'm a little too young for it. I was alive during that time, but I don't think I was being taken at 6 or 7, to a big exclusive ticket selling of Battle of the Bulge. All right, but the whole idea behind them was really neat. It was really cool because it made movies special. It was like a big deal. It wasn't just a movie playing in your local theater. What happened was they do a 70 millimeter print of a film, and some of them were like musicals, some of them were big historical epics. Other ones were like like Ice Station Zebra, Battle of the Bulge, Sand Pebbles, Around the World in 80 Days. They would do these. Big productions where it would be before the normal release of the film. It would be a big premiere engagements, special tickets. It would be a little bit more, it would be more expensive than the regular movie. You get assigned seating, and then you go in to see the film, and you get a big old program. A big colorful program of the movie you were going to see, and it was a big presentation. People would get dressed up for it. It would be a whole night at the movies as opposed to the normal double features that they had back then. You would just go see this one movie and sit down in this, in the huge theaters of whatever the city that it was in. And then there would be oftentimes an overture at the beginning where you'd play the entire soundtrack. Done in like a Broadway show, overture version of it, and then almost normally the road shows would have intermission that would happen right, in the mid time, and almost normally there would be about like 10 extra minutes added to the movie that you'd only get to see in the roadshow version. If I'm going to shoot in 65 millimeter and release in 70. I'm not going to get 3,000 theaters to convert to 70, even if they wanted to, which they don't. It wouldn't be possible. However, we could do a roadshow version of such, where we go in 100 screens, filtered throughout America. The idea is in the two big cities of whatever state we're talking about is Hateful Eight will be playing in 70 millimeter in this special roadshow version. And so in a weird way, that actually seems very applicable, and it could actually work very well for us. And it takes it out of just the whole Cineplex vibe that it actually is this big thing, and we're going into the bigger theaters that we can find. And in a lot of the cases, some of the ones that are still set up to do 70 are the old picture palaces that are still in existence. Most of the big towns have that one old theater that is still in business. Maybe maybe it's a concert venue now. Maybe it's maybe it's something else now. But a lot of the places that we can do that in are some of those old classic movie theaters, and the places that aren't set up to do it. Work together with the Weinstein companies, and we're setting them up. We're creating our own situations, and we're creating our own venues to show 70 millimeter. By shooting it in 65 millimeter, I'm guaranteeing to some degree or another, there will be 70 millimeter film prints out there in the world screening for people who care. 24 frames a second flickering through the projector, creating the illusion of movement. Now, I get questions all the time about people going, okay, so you shot it in 70, right? Yeah. But I mean, most of it takes place inside of a big shack, right? Like a bar kind of way station shack, right? It's all indoors, right? Yeah. And the part that doesn't take place indoors takes place in a stagecoach, right? Yeah. And then they go, well, why shoot it in 70? And I understand stand the question, but to me that's just a very narrow view of 70. I mean, it basically is just suggesting that, you know, the only reason you would shoot 70 is if you just want to shoot mountain ranges or vast desert landscapes, or basically landscapes in general. I mean, that's basically what everyone's saying. You know, if you're going to do this big outdoor movie with a bunch of landscapes and stuff, well, then that would make sense to shoot it on 70. But if it mostly takes place indoors, why are you shooting it on 70? Well, I don't think it's just a format, you know, just made to shoot the Grand Canyon. I don't think it's a format that, like, its only place is the Sahara Desert, or its only place is the Gobi Desert, or the only place is, you know, the Rocky Mountains of Colorado on a big wide vista. I think it's one of the most dynamic, beautiful looking formats that there is. And I've always understood from my very first movie, Reservoir Dogs, which was a scope movie, even though it all took place in a warehouse, and everyone was like saying, well, why are you shooting scope for your first movie if you're just taking place in a warehouse? Well, I actually believe that these big formats actually offer more intimacy, that you can be closer to the characters. It can bring you closer, and it can actually invade the intimacy of the characters in its bigness, in those big close-ups and stuff. But also, it's just the fact that like I said, I don't think it's just a format that's only meant for travelogues. And if that were the case, that would be the case. But I don't think it is. I think it's a very narrow view of the uses of 70mm film, especially when you have somebody like Bob Richardson doing the shooting and doing the lighting. So, you know, we'll see what they say, but hopefully when people see Hateful Eight, they won't ask, why did you bother shooting it on 70? How gorgeous it is, and how vivid it is, and how intimate it is will be the answer. These lenses hadn't been used since the movie Khartoum with Charlton Heston and Laurence Olivier. That was the last time they were used, about 40 years ago. And so Bob is asking about them, and they're telling him, and he's thinking, whoa, this could exactly be what Quentin would like. Quentin would love these. And so he was like, are they any good? Do they work? And they go, yeah, we think so. So immediately, Bob said, then I want these. And so then we immediately went out and started testing them. And doing a shooting test and putting them under some sort of a stress test because, you know, we were going to be filming in frigid cold where cameras and all that kind of stuff freeze commonly. So we need to be able to know, would it work? How do they look? Do anything needs to be worked on? And definitely there were things that needed to be worked on about them. But they ended up being fantastic for us. And just to give us an idea of exactly what it is we were going to see, Panavision set up a screening of The Chariot Race of Ben-Hur in its original 2.7.6 format. And I realized I had actually never seen Ben-Hur in its original 2.7.6 format. And it was truly, truly amazing. And so, you know, we just decided to go ahead with the lenses until we put them through the stress tests. And if Bob says they were good to go, then we were going to use them. And we did. And we never really had that much of a problem with them at all. They ended up being fantastic. And I think the look that they deliver speaks for themselves. The way the actors reacted was, well, they just thought it was special. I mean, they thought it was just very exciting that we were shooting in 70, and they thought it was exciting seeing the big camera and the big mag and the big old lenses. And, but you know, almost all the actors that I have in this movie are more older school types. So they like working on film. On film, there was a special magic on a set when you said action, and to the point that the take ran until you said cut. And that was a sacred time. That was a special time. People stopped doing what they were doing, and everyone settled down, and this was money, and this was the time, and that's film running through a camera. No one took it for granted. And it was it was a thing.